and you're watching the greatest show on the internet, and you're
Broadcast the rhythm. Go live, Vegas on the screen, feeling the flow, so pristine. Boom, as the beats align, electric dreams, they intertwine.
It's a game day huddle. Your sports hang out, bringing you the scores, dedication shouts.
Huddle up.
All right, off and running on a Monday after a couple weeks. We are back in action. It is the Game Day Huddle. Brent Lawson, Steve Johnson, Jimmy Garino. And you know we were chomping at the bit to get back on air because it is getting feisty, it is getting chesty, and it is getting loud. Our audio checks nearly practically created a sonic boom. And Steve, what? Yeah,
just simple,
lay it on me.
Simple. Jimmy, you got 30 seconds. Let it out, buddy.
Yeah,
let it out.
Vent it out.
It's been a fun last couple weeks. I have to say, you know, I've missed you guys.
Yes.
That's all.
Ditto.
So I came in chatting. They're like, you've said more words today than you said in the whole 6 months we've been doing this. But hey, I missed you guys. What can I say?
Because normally Jimmy comes in, once we get on the show and get on the air, he's ready to go. He's ready to drop the insights, drop the analysis. But a lot of times beforehand, there are certain topical conversations that may pique his interest. But most of the time, Jimmy's calm, Jimmy's stoic, Jimmy's just reserving himself for the show. We might as well just walked in with all the cameras and microphones on today because he was off and running with the shots fired. But we are very much off and running for the show as well. And last time we were all on the air, obviously we had a lot to break down, a lot to recap regarding the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Finals. Here we are a few weeks removed on the other side of the 4th of July holiday. We hope it was a happy and safe one for you. But again, with so much of the talk regarding the sports calendar, right, the sports slate this time of year, is how dead it is. But in the hobby space, gentlemen, in the card industry, that never seems to be the case. And right when it seems like, when you get to that early mid-July period where it seems like things are kind of going to fall off the face of the earth, you have the All-Star break. And in some years, that's a more interesting period of time than others. This season in particular is one that is very interesting. And not just with the All-Star rosters that were just recently announced, but with the ramifications surrounding so many of the players and their card markets. And really, that was a talking point, fellas, in our group chat heading into the show, right? Obviously, even before the game, the emphasis that is already going to be placed on all the different card markets for these players. And we'll go ahead and, we'll break down the rosters as they have been revealed now. But Steve, just in terms of initial reaction, because obviously this happens every year. Who got snubbed? Did they get it right? Did they get it wrong? What is this really going to mean for each respective team in the National League and the American League? But just from your point of view and your immediate reaction, especially as a baseball guy, did they get it right?
I don't think so. Mm-hmm. And I understand the dog and pony show of, put Clayton Kershaw on the roster because he it has his time of service, but you could have done it in another way, right?
Yep.
You could have made him an official, bullpen coach or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to look across the American League. The number one glaring snub to me is Framber Valdez of the Astros. There is no reason why that guy, he is one of the best pitchers in the American League. He is consistent. He's nasty. He just shut down arguably the best team in baseball, the Dodgers, right? And obviously that
bad.
staff did an incredible job this
Bad,
weekend.
yeah.
But the fact that you have guys like that, and again, look, Clayton didn't take his position. I understand this. We're talking American and National League, but I'm talking about the aesthetics of the game, right? And then everybody wants to talk about Juan Soto. Honestly, I don't think Soto should have been an all-star.
Yeah, I thought that was almost an overreaction. I get that he's such a big name, and I get that he's kind of woken up a little bit despite the Mets' struggles, but I don't get this whole, polarizing debate. I think it kind of sells itself given what he's done in the first half of the season. I'm with you. I don't necessarily think that's an all-star stat line.
Well, and again, you look down this list and you look at guys that didn't make it. Look, Michael Busch, the first baseman for Chicago Cubs, right? He's hitting .293 with 18 home runs and 56 RBIs. Not an all-star, right? From the Reds, you got Andrew Abbott. He's 7-1 with a .215 ERA, and he's not on this team. And Clayton Kershaw is
telling,
right? 7-1 at the All-Star break. That is a pretty dominant number for a team that's been middle of the road. So let's not talk about this team has played great and that's why he's winning.
100%.
It's because he's shutting teams down. A guy that I've been big on, Junior Caminero, he has cooled down a little bit, but he's still got 21 home runs, 55 RBIs. Another guy that didn't make it. You could argue Jackson Holiday is someone that probably should have been on our roster, but also his team's not playing well. So that's not very helpful.
Right.
But one guy that really stood out to me, and this guy's a perennial all-star in my opinion, based on who he is, and he's a borderline Hall of Famer when his career's done, and that's George Springer.
Yeah.
Right?
World
285,
Series MVP,
16, and 53.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned borderline, and obviously that's not relevant to the 2025 campaign. I like the fact that you say he's a perennial all-star, he's a future Hall of Famer, and in some leagues that doesn't matter as much. If there's one, it's baseball, and you can't say that the legend aspect doesn't matter because, like you just said, Clayton Kershaw is on the roster for that very reason.
He's got
why not Springer?
The second most leadoff home runs of all time. Right. He's one of those guys that he's been involved everywhere he goes, and he's made an impact every single place that he goes. Those are guys that I can sit here and say, I don't know if those guys should have made a roster. And then the second thing is that was glaring to me. How is Bobby Witt Jr. not the starter for the American League?
That's what I can't believe.
How in the world is that guy?
He's almost in every MVP talk. It's crazy.
He's as good as anybody in the game.
And he's not the starter. And again, I understand it's a fan vote, right? You have a fan vote. You have all of these things that are going on, and he's not the starter?
Mm-hmm. That's insane. And again, because you have – and – look at some of these reserves around him. Bregman, Chisholm. Bobby Witt is not in that crop. And I'm not saying that necessarily just because you're a reserve, your statistical production needs to reflect the other reserves. But when you look at Bobby Witt Jr.'s production, that is up there with the Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s and with the Cal Rayleighs and with, the Gleyber Torres and the Jose Ramirez, and in some cases surpassing them. Obviously, it's going to vary depending on the actual position, depending on the standards and the metric. But either way, there are just some guys who pop like an all-star, whether it be perennially, as you just said, Steve, or whether it be on a year-by-year basis, that it's a little more spotty, a little more sporadic. But this year, very much, Bobby Witt, we knew coming into the year he was going to have a great year. He's one of the best young talents of the game, as you've both alluded to. But I'm with you. That's a little glaring. But, Jimmy, what catches your eye as far as the rosters themselves? We'll get into the actual card market value, but anything that initially popped you when these were unveiled a few days ago?
No, anytime that it's a fan vote, you're always going to get this kind of reaction.
It's almost inevitable.
It's never going to be ultimately perfect. This is what it is. Fans are fans. What does it stand for? Fanatics. We vote in who we like.
Yep.
We're not voting in the best players. If we were voting in the best players, these lineups would be totally different, and we'd have guys that wouldn't even break people's mind.
Yeah.
You'd be like, wait, what?
Right.
Because he's batting .363 and nobody really notices. But in the All-Star game, it's fan vote. We get what
popularity
we get.
contest.
And look, I understand. Look, Jacob Wilson absolutely deserves to be in the All-Star game. But I can tell you right now, and Aaron's not a sports guy or a producer, right? He's not. And if I showed him Bobby Witt Jr. and I showed him Jacob Wilson, he would pick Bobby Witt Jr.
Blind eye test, right?
And to me, I don't know. Again, look, it's a great story. And look, for a team that is playing in no man's land in Sacramento right now and not really being able to be that full-fledged major league team on the radar, and they're watching their games is kind of rough because it just doesn't look, the aesthetic doesn't look great. The guy is playing incredibly well, so I don't want to take anything away from him. Now, from the hobby standpoint, it's incredible that he's starting in the All-Star game.
Really?
Because all of those people who are on the East Coast or
never seen him
who've
play.
never seen him play
Yeah.
are going to get at least 2 at-bats out of this kid who's making a bunch of noise for the A's right now. And I think that is going to be something that would be important. And you know this as well as I do.
And that's what I was going to ask you. How important is a game like this? Because so often the casual fan base, the first time they may really be watching some of these guys play, especially those smaller market, lesser known teams, is going to be this weekend. The Home Run Derby, the All-Star game, and everything in between, right? Those festivities draw a lot of attention. How does that reflect in the card space, in the hobby space, Jimmy?
Exactly. People just on the West Coast. If
Right.
you're a team like Seattle Mariners or you're like the Oakland Athletics or the Angels or everybody knows all the Dodger players. But if you're one of those not big market teams, you're finally going to get seen by the whole nation. This is the first time that a lot of these guys will be out there, be in the spotlight, be seen, be able to be like, oh, that kid is really that good.
Yep.
So it's going to be
Showcase.
good for the card markets. People not necessarily are going to, if somebody goes 2 for 2 with, a triple and a home run,
Right.
their cards aren't technically going to jump up that high and spike or anything like that from the game. But it will start to bring in interest to that player, and it will help them overall.
Well, the guys that I think that you really see that this really impacts is actually go to the Futures game.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to talk about.
Everybody wants to see Jesus Made
Right.
Yes.
play against the best talent in minor league baseball.
And then, Aaron, go ahead and throw up that National League graphic if we can, just so we can, if you want to get eyes on it. And we'll go ahead and read it out for our audio listeners as well. But I think that's a great point, Steve, because as we look at this, at the roster, because, again, the no-brainers, the Will Smiths have an incredible year as a catcher. Pete Alonso, Ellie De La Cruz, obviously
Real
Freddie
quick,
Freeman,
I just-
Francisco Lindor. Go
I want to
right
have
ahead.
a Steve was right moment, by the way.
Let's hear it.
Look at the top name on this list, Jimmy.
At catcher. Yep.
We have a guest coming on in the next segment who took some advice from me, 2.5 years ago
Right.
on that particular player. And now he's a starter in the All-Star game. That's the kind of player that will see the impact. Hunter Goodman, he's a guy
Get that rub.
you will see
Yep.
an impact because he plays for the Rockies, just what you were just talking about, and the fact that he's on here. And this is a guy that he hit 40 home runs at AA.
Yep.
Like, this guy is a beast.
That's
and
right.
now everybody's going to get a chance to actually see this guy on a big stage.
And when you look at it, the only reason he's reserved, because, again, the names in the infield, obviously it's not the same position, but Freddie Freeman, Ketel Marte, Manny Machado, Francisco Lindor, Acuna Jr., PCA out of Chicago. We talked on and on about him. We know how good Kyle Tucker is, and, of course, Shohei Ohtani. Look at how stacked that is. And then you have Hunter Goodman, Pete Alonso, and, again, Ellie De La Cruz right in the wings, Fernando Tatis, Kyle Schwarber. Are you leaning a certain way here? Because obviously I don't necessarily think the American team lacks substance compared to the National League roster, but there's a whole lot of flash on this National League roster. Are you leaning a certain way in the game itself?
Well, I think
early
that
prediction.
I think that overall the depth of the pitching in the National League
Yep.
is better than the depth in the.
Absolutely.
It shows.
And if you
we
just
just
look-
talked about a 7-1
Yes.
guy who's not even on this roster off the National League.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you look at just the starting pitching alone, Boyd, Gore, Kershaw, obviously the legend selection, but Peralta, Chris Sale, Robbie Ray, Skeens, of course, the young, phenom. You have the faces of the game. Yamamoto's another one. You have the young current face of the game, but you also have some veteran, kind of legend caliber guys in there as well, which you're always going to get in the pitching staff. But like Steve said, the depth with Diaz and Rodriguez, and we'll go ahead and throw the American League up as well to look at it comparatively speaking. But Jimmy, is there something that the American League roster you think kind of brings to the table that they could puff their chest about in this dynamic? Because I'm with Steve on the hill. The National League definitely gets the nod in addition to some of that infield depth. But the American League, if anything else, we know what they can do offensively at the plate.
Yeah, I think the power. If
Yeah.
you look at the American
distance.
League,
Yeah.
when they hit for power. If you look at every single guy in their lineup,
Yep.
I think every single guy has over 12 home runs.
Absolutely.
So if you have over 12 home runs at the All-Star break, you're not only having a great year, but some of these guys have 30, 25, 30, 32 with Judge. Like
40.
Right, exactly.
He has 40 now?
Yeah.
Where have I been?
Yeah,
the last 2 weeks?
because even the Mets, they lost a series against the Mets.
Oh, that's
but,
right.
Yeah, because early in the game
And
one, he
just hit
jumped
one
out
just
Yep,
yesterday
exactly.
too. So you're looking at these guys that they just hit for power.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of guys that are going to hit for average in the American League. You look at their pitching lineup, it's okay. Nobody jumps out at that. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
he is the guy. You know, like.
Outside of maybe Scooball.
Scooball and Crochet are probably the
Yeah.
two names on the roster.
But even
with arms.
even Crochet is like, he got dumped away by the White Sox because there was a reason why.
Collectively, it's not quite there. And even
Not
Freed,
even close to what the National League is
and
putting
even
out
Freed,
there.
Not even
Freed's been great in spurts, but when you look at what the National League starting pitching has done, I mean, the face of pitching right now, outside of maybe Scooball, very much goes through the National League and several of those guys.
Then you got to look at Aroldis Chapman. How is he still an All-Star?
That I couldn't
When
believe.
I saw his name on the list, I'm like, what's this? Is
Am I
He
looking-
has,
team?
he
Am I
has a
looking at
little
an
bit of a
old list?
resurgence.
Right,
he
yeah.
has. And he's back throwing 100 plus.
It's
that was the other thing, was that he was like 98, 99 for most of
But
the
he
last few
never's had
years.
movement.
And now he's 101 consistently, and he's hitting his spots. So who he's working with
Is working.
found something.
Yeah.
And we do see that
You
sometimes
know?
when the velocity ticks back up. We
Yeah.
think maybe there's a career renaissance. So I'm with you in terms of the actual
Either that or
production.
there's a test down
Right,
the road.
exactly. There's something that we're gonna get.
Mark that test.
Yeah, we're gonna get
TVs.
the smartphone gonna get some type of push notification, no doubt about it. But I'm with you, and sometimes it just pops because it's a great point that both of you bring up that there is very much a element of production from a pitcher like Chapman that warrants that. But when you see it on paper, when you see these teams unveiled, you have so many of the current young guns in the game, the young studs, and we still have Chapman in the mix. Very much though, you could say the same thing about Kershaw. And speaking of Kershaw, I really want to go back. I want to go back to him really quick, just because we have talked on this show when historical feats are accomplished, what it does to the card market. And we know something like an Alexander Ovechkin surpassing the great one, right? That's going to be hard to pass. And obviously this isn't quite that, Jimmy. But when you have someone who joins the 3K club, 3,000 Ks, right? I mean, in total, that is as impressive as it gets, but it's also not surprising because everything about Clayton Kershaw being an all-time great, a generational great, we've been blue in the face talking about for a long time, well before this recent run where it's kind of the back end of his career anyway. So even though he may not be relevant the way he once was, he's obviously going to be honored just by being on the All-Star team as a National League selection anyway, and he's still a part of a team that is the reigning defending World Series champs until proven otherwise. Do we see any type of resurgence on his market just because it's him and the thing that he just accomplished with the 3,000 strikeouts, or is it more so now that there's just not enough intrigue in him to warrant those sales?
No, absolutely. There's definitely a little bump up. Anytime that your name's in the headlines, it's always going to help you.
Right.
It's never going to hurt you. Even if it's something a little bad, it still helps your market because people start to talk about you, look back at you, see what you're doing. And if you look at 3,000 strikeouts, like on the average, a starter is doing what, 6 to 10 strikeouts a game, if they're lucky, 6 to 10 strikeouts.
The real good ones.
Real
Yeah.
good ones.
Top
but
end.
you divide that by 3,000. You know how many games you have to be that damn good at?
You have to be dominant in 300 games.
It's pretty freaking impressive when you're only pitching what, 30 games a year.
Yeah.
So that's a 10-year stretch that you were at the top of your game.
Well, and you have to be dominant.
And unparalleled.
in
10
those.
years.
So
Yeah,
it's not 10 years.
unparalleled.
It's
Other
more
than
like
Scherzer.
15 because you're
Correct.
going to have those bad outings.
Right.
You're going to have look,
Injuries, yeah.
I've not yet, and unless it goes, there's not a 25-0 pitcher out there that's, started and finished every game or pitched 7 innings minimum or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't exist. So that's exactly it. It's that
And so
challenge
impressive.
of how hard it is to do this. It's the same reason why we're not going to see another 250 game winner, let alone 300 game winner. That's just not going to happen.
The gap is so big that there's not even a close second right
Yeah.
now, and the fact that we won't even see someone remotely. It's like Mariano Rivera in closing. Like when he retired, it's like not only is he retiring standing alone, there's no one even in the vicinity, right?
No
When
one's
you're-
coming close ever
right.
again,
And when you're
yeah.
not even in the conversation, that is pretty glaring. And for all the talk about Kershaw, whether he underwhelmed in the playoffs throughout the past, and whether he may have not been as accomplished as his talent warrants, either way, we are looking at one of the greatest to ever do it. In terms of talent, I mean, some have argued maybe the greatest to ever do it, at least within a certain time frame. So it is going to be interesting to see how it all works out. Even just the fact of him being out there for All-Star Weekend himself, it's kind of cool. But
How cool was this though when he was doing
Oh,
the
oh,
and then
absolutely.
starting the wave
Yep.
with everybody?
Yeah.
I just love watching that clip because he's like going into his windup, goes up, the whole crowd goes up, and then the wave starts.
And that's what I like.
So much fun.
And that's what's cool to see. It's cool to see a guy not necessarily doing a victory lap or a retirement lap, but a guy who knows that his days are limited in the sport, and he knows that at this point the fan appreciation is really what he's going for. And really, this is kind of an example of just that, especially as you said, Jimmy, being a fan voted process. I guess it is fitting that he ends up here. But speaking of his Dodgers, right? We just talked about the Astros, Steve, and what they were able to do on the mound against them, sweeping them, blowing blowing them out in one game, 18-1 alone. And when you look collectively across the league, Mets struggling, right? They top the Yankees in a series, who are also struggling. Some of these big market, high-profile teams that we have slated as contenders, and when it's all said and done, very much will still be contenders, but we're seeing them starting to come back down to earth, and I think that's a good thing, especially when you have some other teams there in the National and American League respectively, whether it be Chicago, whether it be Detroit. I think it's good because now we're having some elements of parity in there. But what does that also do to the how people approach the hobby? Because it's easy to get excited with the opening day buzz, even throughout April and May, and it's really easy to get excited about August and September. But in terms of the actual just collective flow of traffic, right, regarding just baseball sales in general, how do you approach the All-Star break, both as someone who's a consumer and someone who directly works in the industry?
Well, I'll tell you that 15 years ago, the All-Star game was all in everything.
Right.
And then it fell off for years
Yeah.
where it just wasn't as exciting, right? The last few years of the Home Run Derby have brought the All-Star game relevance back because it's been fun.
It's a TV product again.
Look, Jimmy brought up Julio Rodriguez, and when Julio came into the league and he got announced, it was a big deal in the hobby. There was a little boom and stuff. But after that Home Run Derby, everybody had to have Julio Rodriguez. Everybody was buying. His market boomed right then.
Right.
It was a very, very relevant thing. I'll tell you right now, Cal Raleigh goes yard in this. That's lights out.
Yeah.
If he hits a home run in the All-Star game and they're showing him leading the American League and baseball in home runs, and they put the pictures of the guys that are all up there with him, everybody's going to go, lights on. This is a guy that I need to see. And as Jimmy pointed out, that's a guy that you're not seeing in, the regular of everything, because the highlights are always the Yankees, always the Mets, always the Phillies, always the Dodgers, right? It's always that, always my Padres. Like, that's what the highlights are. They're not, Seattle playing against Pittsburgh on a Thursday, and Cal Raleigh hitting 2 jacks. Like, you're not seeing that as much as you're seeing everything else.
Absolutely.
So when that fanfare is here, that's the type players, that's the situations, those are the things that'll occur. The Hunter Goodmans, if Hunter goes up and hits a double, and now they start talking about this future Rockies franchise, right? Those are guys that you'll see a benefit to. I actually thought, and I thought it'd be funny for both of you guys as Yankees fans.
Yeah.
The name that was the most
a lot of things are
interesting
funny for
on
us
the
as
roster,
Yankee fans right now.
the most interesting name on this roster to me was Gleyber Torres.
Oh, Hunter, I said it on the car ride coming over. I said, literally thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? Good for Gleyber, because in the offseason, it was so easy to forget that he was departing. And honestly, Yankee fans, Jimmy, never gave him a fair shake. I love the fact that he is here, and he's a part of a team that's going to give the Yankees potentially that's an absolute problem and create thorns in their side down the road. There's a good chance that's the case.
Yeah, Gleyber was always the ones that we're true fans.
Yeah.
We watch a lot of Yankee games. I probably watch at least 70% of the games throughout the year. And I always look back at Torres, and I always thought he was okay.
We appreciate what he did.
Like, he's not a bad ball player.
No.
I don't get why the Yankees fans never gave him the shake that he deserved.
Well,
he
and
never,
neither did the
really,
Yankees roster.
Right. Yeah.
Because every time he started to excel, they moved him in a position and brought someone else to play his position.
And they never put him in a spot in the lineup to where put him in front of Judge.
Yes.
Let him hit in front of Judge and see how many good pitches he sees.
He was overcompensating given where they had him defensively and where they had him in the batting
order. They never gave him a fair shake. He's a good ball player. He's obviously an all-star with another team. So now we'll see. His card market has started to tick, because I had 2 of his rookie autos, and they both sold. Well, and that's, so obviously people are looking at it.
And that's what I'll ask you guys really quick before we pivot, because again, we have a great guest. We have Anthony Scott from Breaks and Taste coming up on the other side. But we also really quick want to touch on this Kevin Durant 17 fiasco.
How did
right?
What the
absolutely.
hell?
So before we get to that, really quick, and this could just be rapid fire, but give me just a couple of names you think on the other side of All-Star Weekend. Who I know, Steve, you already mentioned a few, but you guys, if there's a few more that you would really put your thumb on. Who do you think is going to pop on the other side of the festivities?
You or me?
All right,
you go first.
Sometimes it's about a guy that comes off the bench, right? So Ellie De La Cruz is probably the guy.
And that's a name,
He's
too.
going to be the guy that will be inserted at a time. And Ellie's market is a little down from where it had been. right? Because it happens all the time. It happened. O'Neal Cruz came up and he became the big flash and everyone was talking about him. And then here comes Ellie. Now there's PCA, right? These are all the same type players.
Right.
If you look at these guys across the board, they may play different positions, but they're flashy defensively. They absolutely run the bases like gazelles, and they all hit for power and average, right? So from that standpoint, when you've got guys like that are doing that, that guy is one of those guys that could be the big surprise.
Yeah.
However, I think when this gets all said and done, this is a Shohei Ohtani show. It really is. This game will be about Shohei Ohtani.
And a lot of people are
This
watching
game
just for him. Yeah.
will be just about his plate appearances and how he is, because we are seeing something with Shohei, because you Dodgers are so in the limelight that you haven't seen in the past. Every team likes Shohei. Every player in Major League Baseball is cool with him.
Yeah.
He's gotten a little chippy when he's needed to as a leader. He's also, he stood my Padres up at their dugout.
Yep.
I can't recall a time that I watched one guy walk towards the dugout and start talking to them and not have two guys get to the top thinking that they're the big dogs.
Well, that was just because he was speaking in Japanese.
Well,
and
of
not in
course,
English,
but-
so they didn't understand what he was saying.
But it's also, you know what, at a time where, at a point in his career where he's on the other side of everything with the gambling, and you could say, obviously, the main conversation around him regarding any controversy was the crowd he was surrounding himself with. You also give a lot of credit to his team of handlers, his PR team, the way he is. I'm not saying they're necessarily telling him to act a certain way, but they are making sure that everything he does can be marketed, can be packaged, can be shown on any type of commercial, but can also be shown on all the sports networks across the country for talking points and all the various talk shows like this one. They're making sure that Shohei is always present. And if he's not always present in terms of something he's doing on the field, it's something that you could, again, put out there and market in the mainstream. And we knew that was going to be the case. We know he's a phenom. We know he's a generational, really an all-time talent. And if anything else, he's playing for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it's fitting you say that, Steve, with all these potential names here that are really just outstanding talents in the game. Ultimately, so much of the fan base watching this game, Jimmy, will be the casual audience, as you guys just mentioned earlier, and the casuals naturally are going to attract to the big stars, which doesn't get any bigger than Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, and the one guy I think needs this All-Star game more than anybody is Corbin Carroll. He's been fluttering lately. He hasn't been hitting well. I think he has like 6 or 7 games or a stint where he's been like 0 for 6, 0 for 7 for multiple games. He's in a reserve position for this game. He needs to get in the bat, see the ball, get hyped back up, and get playing again. Because that guy, when he's healthy and he's right, he's one of the best players in baseball. And right now he just doesn't look like it. And I just bought a big out of 99 Bowman First Auto, so I need that card to tick up a couple notches. So I need him to actually do something in this All-Star game.
Well, and Corbin Carroll's a good one. I think on the other side in the American League, it's Javier Baez. Javier Baez is probably the guy that could have the most impact from people realizing that he's back.
And I was just about to say, we have seen the resurgence. Like, at one point, it was maybe just a talking point, like, oh, look at what this guy is able to do. At one point, he was a prominent young talent, and now it's a whole second stint, really.
Well, and they put him in the outfield, right? Which means he's not having to put as much like wear and tear on his arm, wear and tear on his body. You're not in the infield. It's always more active than the outfield.
You're always moving,
right?
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I think that that's being helpful. He's also playing reined in, and what I mean by that is you don't see him making the knucklehead moves on the base pass like he was doing, sliding late, causing problems, getting thrown at. These are all things that would happen in the past.
Yeah.
And now, look, they put out a ton of money for him to play in Detroit. He came in, he was not worth the money in that first, season or two.
Right.
Like, definitely didn't showcase like it should have. They thought him and Miguel Cabrera and all this, but now he's kind of back in that realm. And look, that coaching staff for the Tigers, obviously they're doing an incredible job because they got Glaber here, they got Javier Baez here.
They're in first place.
And they're in first place. So when you talk about what that team has done with the talent, somebody's looked at these guys and been told, okay, go ahead and run with what you think would be best for them. And so far, it's paying dividends.
And I like that because so much of the talk about that great 2016, the historic 2016 Cubs team, right, that broke that streak, for a long time we were thinking the only one who's going to be relevant now, at least in the immediate sense, is Kyle Schwarber. It was looking that was going to be the case. Javi Baez with the resurgence. It's a cool story. And I like how what Steve mentioned. So many of the mistakes he made were the lack of IQ, baseball IQ, the mental mistakes. The bat discipline was always very shaky in Chicago, even when you look at him at the plate. And all those things, now we're seeing a refined player, yet that talent, yet that dynamic athleticism is still there as well. So that's what I just think is ultimately cool about the All-Star game, really on any year, because you're always going to find that. But it seems like this year we really get kind of a smorgasbord, you will, of these type of talking points, which is cool because this is just the preview side of it. We'll see how when it's all said and done on the recap side. Of course, the aftermath of the game doesn't matter as it once did with the winner, but even so, in the card space, it is certainly going to matter. So be on the lookout for any of the names just mentioned here in the last few minutes. But before we go to break really quick, I want to jump from the diamond to the hardwood, guys, because we did touch on the Kevin Durant trade and the immediate aftermath of it. But when we initially a couple of weeks ago, broke down the ramifications of it all, we didn't realize that would ultimately include and basically just reflect overall the largest trade officially in NBA history, which finally came together yesterday. As we know, Kevin Durant is with Houston now in exchange for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, but also a slew of other assets with now ultimately no fewer than 7 teams and 13 total players involved. When it's all said and done, Houston gets the great Kevin Durant as well as Clint Capella. The Suns getting Green, Brooks, as well as plenty of other assets. But ultimately, when it's all said and done, guys, this goes down now as the biggest trade of all time. It tops last summer with the Klay Thompson 16 transaction that sent to the Mavericks. When you have this type of involvement, Steve, and when you have headlines like this, look, the casual fan's not really going to care. And even people directly in the hobby space may not care as far as all the outside factors. But at the same time, in terms of the market of Kevin Durant and everything else now that happened as a result, right? The floodgates very much broke open. Do you guys in the card space look back to the monumental moments like this and kind of determine whether or not the result of it is basically, a thumbs up or a thumbs down, right? Was it a boom or a bust, right? Kevin Durant may play great for Houston, but when you look at all these other things now, do you guys kind of have to keep that in your back pocket? Because some of these other guys may wind up popping, all things considered, not to the degree that Kevin Durant is going to, but because of that, when you look at their sales and you look at their market, you're going to have to look back at this point in time, are you not?
Well, I think it's funny because in this particular trade, you only had 1 first-round pick slot. Right?
It's all like back
everything else was second. There was, I think, 7 or 8 second rounders in this deal was kind of what it was.
Well down the road, too.
I actually think what's really interesting here is going to be the impact that it's going to have on Jalen Green's market.
I think he's the only one that matters in this trade.
Yeah. And the reason I say this is because every single time that he's featured on a Friday night or a Tuesday night in one of those premium primetime games, they're going to talk about how he was traded.
Yep.
And the second thing is going to be this, and I think this is why I really point this out. How many ball handlers got hurt at the end of last season?
Oh, man.
Run down the list. We saw Halliburton
if you
go
include
down.
The playoffs,
we saw Dame Lillard
Jason
go down.
Tatum.
Right?
If you include the
we
playoffs,
saw Tatum
so
go down.
many.
Just those guys alone, not counting the other players. Who did those impacts help in this sport? The number one guy that came to mind to me was Booker. So because of that, I think you're going to see more shine light on Booker this year. I think you're going to see that. And Jalen Green is going to be the direct benefit of that.
Yeah, I think style of play. He's moving to a team that I know we touched on this prior podcast, but that style of play that the Suns play with, they're up and down the court. They get off shots quick. They don't run down the shot clock to 5, 6 seconds left.
It's the opposite of what we just saw from OKC and Indiana.
Where they're taking the air out of the ball.
You could see this dude distributing 20 assists a game, and all of a sudden that's being talked about.
You touch the ball more, you shoot the ball more, your points go up, your assists go up, everything goes up. So you're looking at a guy that was in Houston where he was a great player.
Yeah.
Their best player on their team. And then now you're putting him on a Suns team. Now he's going to be playing with another all-star, and they're going to be running up and down that court. It's going to be big numbers for Jalen Green. Pop on him.
And it shows, and I love it because it shows that you can maximize a player can maximize their skill sets, and because of that, the card market is going to naturally pick up. You're going to get the traction because now, much like you said, so often in basketball, especially when it's a player who's just kind of really joining the party as far as the popular table, if you will, right? The cool kids table in the cafeteria. all of that is ultimately going to go back to the statistical productions and, like what Steve says, what have you done for me lately? Well, now they see Jalen Green balling out in a new market for a team that has a lot of flash to it, and as a result, you're going to see those stat lines really take an uptick. And again, he's relevant because he's in really the biggest trade now in the history of the NBA when you look at all the moving pieces.
Well, and the other guy that I think that this really benefits, it's funny because he wasn't in the trade, but he was on the team that was in the trade, and that's Alperen Sengun, right? And the reason for him is because now Durant's going to command some of those double teams, and they're going to get that. And this guy can shoot the rock. Yeah, so he's someone that can throw it up, and he had a very solid year last year. This could be that next. He could pick up another 5 to 7 shots a game. Now, all of a sudden, you could be looking at him being talked about as one of the more productive players in the sport, and people going, oh, when he's been pretty good the whole time. Now Kevin Durant's here, he's even better.
And you know what I love? Everything as we go to break here, everything that we just mentioned are all regarding players. We could go on and on. I mean, we could fill a 2-hour show just breaking down every little nook and cranny of this all here. But every player we just mentioned is already an established entity in the league, whether they be an elite force, a role player, whatever, all with the opportunity to continue to produce. But what's really interesting about this trade, fellas, is that when it's all said and done, and the fact that some of these draft picks won't even be effectively made until 2032, this means that some of the players who will wind up going down as a part of this trade aren't even in high school yet. So there are players in the 8th grade, when you look at the timetable of it, who will be in the mix of this, who will be taken, athletes who will be watching in the NCAA tournament and all the AAU festivities leading up to it, and guys who we will be predicting their card markets in the future, prospects, right? Top-notch elite blue chip players. They eventually will be in the mix of this because the seeds are planted now. So when it's all said and done, we can look back at this. I mean, look at OKC. You have Jalen Green and you have SGA and Jalen, right? You have all the other pieces in Chet. All those guys brought in, including Halliburton on that side, were all through trades. So whether it be through they brought someone in or they were able to trade and push someone out to bring in Jalen, to bring in SGA and all these other players, the 2 top teams in the East and West respectively were a result of deeply rooted trades and moves that happen years down the road, years ahead of time. You see how it manifests years down the road. This very much could be the same, again, as part of what now seems like a 7-team fiasco. But as the dust settles and the smoke clears, we'll see who really wins when it's all said and done. But again, be on the lookout of all those names that Jimmy and Steve just mentioned. Again, regarding the All-Star game as well, there's going to be a lot regarding the hobby space, and that's what's so cool about shows like this one. Even at a time of year where things seem quiet on the sports front, that is never the case here in the Game Day Huddle, because there is always stuff in the hobby to talk about. And of course, that leads us to the other side, where we will talk everything regarding the hobby with a bright mind in his own right. Anthony Scott from Breaks and Takes. He's joined us on the show before live in studio. We're going to get him via, where is he chiming in from, Steve? Okay, he is in Chicago, because I know last time he was in town for WrestleMania. He was in the Valley. So either way, I'm very happy that we're going to get to have him on. It's been a while, so we can't wait to pick Anthony Scott's break. So don't go anywhere. That'll be on the other side. It's the Game Day Huddle with Brett, Steve, and Jimmy right here live from the Go Live Vegas studio on a Monday. Plenty more to come on the other side.
Peppermint Patty's the worst. Comic-Con.com, your daily comic convention online. Insightful reviews, previews of the comics, toys, and games you need to know. Delightful chats with luminaries from around the geek spectrum. In print, on video, and everywhere in between. The show never stops on Comic-Con.com.
Come on down to the Grill Bar. Craft beer's never too far. Like do every night. Fill the crew and get it right. Raise the glass, raise the you hat. The food, the friends are near. Dance around, laugh and play. Voodoo Bar's a place to stay.
Swim, you Studios, a unique multi-camera social media virtual content creators paradise. We offer high-end services using live streaming and film production for your personal or corporate, commercial or event and campaign needs. Pre-record or live stream to your audience on multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Fun and interactive with social media comments, phone lines, live remotes, audio Foley sounds, and Snapchat filters. Be creative, get recognized, and make money. We help you by providing an all in-house production team. Visit our website at golive.vegas.
Peppermint Patty's the worst. Comicon.com, your daily comic convention online. Insightful reviews, previews of the comics, toys, and games you need to know. Delightful chats with luminaries from around the geek spectrum. In print, on video, and everywhere in between. The show never stops on Comicon.com.
Come on down to the grill bar. Craft beer is never too far. I do every night. Fill the crew and get it right. Raise the glass, raise the you hat. The food, friends of me. Dance around, let them play. Voodoo Ball's a place to stay.
All right, keeping it rolling here on a Monday. It is the Game Day Huddle. Brett Lawson, Steve Johnson, Jimmy Garino. You see Steve Johnson up close, front and center as he makes his way back in. But gentlemen, a fun show so far. Plenty to discuss, and that's what's so cool. As I said before the break, when you have this much to talk about, it's such a dormant time of the calendar year on the sports front. It just makes what we do that much more enjoyable. And when we could get guests like the guest joining us now from Chicago, none other from Breaks and Takes, Anthony Scott, it makes it that much better. And Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. I know Steve and Jimmy have plenty of industry-related conversations to ask you, as do I. But just regarding this time of year, because last time we talked to you, it was in the immediate aftermath of the Super Bowl. We had WrestleMania going on, March Madness. There are a lot of moving parts regarding everything in the sports world. Now, not so much. What's the most important thing for someone like you and someone who has so many responsibilities to kind of track all this on the day by day? This time of year, what's the biggest thing for you and a man in your position to do regarding these markets and really deeming what's important and what's not?
Man, now it's trying to figure out what the trend is, right? It seems like everybody in the industry is always going towards what the rest of the hobby's trending. This time of year, like the last basketball class was kind of weak. So like basketball breaks and people chasing players from that team, it's kind of like it's starting to catch up because like Modest Bazelis had a good end of the season, and you know a few other players kind of showing a little bit of life, especially going to the playoffs and stuff like that this year. But I think it was a little too late. Now, like you said, it's a dead part of the season, right? We're at the All-Star break,
right?
And I think everybody's anticipating football, right? Is Jaden Daniels going to live up to the hype the way he played last year? Is kind of a big buzz right now that's going around. Is Michael Penix going to stay healthy, right? Like those are the things like everybody's prospecting right now and trying to find out who's the right one to go with is the big question right now. Is Drake May going to be the guy with all the tools they've added around him? Is Caleb going to win more than 4 games this year because some of the tools that they've added in an offensive line? So just trying to find out, us from being breakers in a breaking industry, is to find out what people are actually going to buy into. And right now, it might surprise you. It's a product called Bo Jackson Battle Arena, which kind of brings Pokemon to sports cards.
Wow.
Seems to be the hottest. And I'm trying to tell people the Dallas show that we were just at, like, you guys literally have walked past product on table that has the highest upside in this entire show.
Wow.
We pulled a card the other night, Bo Jackson Auto out of 10, that arguably is going to go for about 10,000 plus on auction.
And it's crazy to think that that's a Bo Jackson auto, right?
You could get it for like $35.
Nuts.
Right, like a Bo Jackson auto, like a nice Bo Jackson auto, something more recent. National Treasures is going to be a $175, $200 card.
Yeah, I was just going to say his average auto across the board is $150 across all products.
And now you're going to get a product where you can sell it for 10
right?
Gs?
His bubblegum auto
right.
out of their
So-
original release Black Friday sold for $12,000 on eBay auction.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
You know,
I know I bought a
the
couple.
average parallel in here that people are chasing, the average parallel is about a $200 card. Do you know how many rookies you can grade and get a PSA 10 that aren't worth $200?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know. I know a little bit about the product because I ripped a little bit last year, but they have active players like Shohei Ohtani, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark. You have all these active players that people are going after, but they make them look like cartoons or like some sort of superhero.
Right.
And then they put them into a card, and obviously there's different variations of that. And I enjoy the concept. I like the concept. Did I think it was going to take off? I don't know. This is the second release, I think, of the Battle. Is that right, Anthony? Is this second set coming out now?
So yeah, this is the second release, and like Magic Johnson signs in it. Now we know Magic signs everything, right?
he does.
Like everybody in the hobby knows Magic signs everything because that's what you do when you're a retired superstar. Is not Michael Jordan, and so his bubblegum auto was pulled live on our stream. I have back deals going on Discord. They're literally trying to get like $4 or $5 grand worth of product to get me to trade for this card. Now, for us, it's a big gamble because we're a breaking company, but do I think that card's probably worth $4 or $5 grand? Somebody needs it because the offers are coming in privately. I don't think that one's going to go on eBay right now. It'll probably go on eBay after the national tournament. They have a $100,000 prize tournament for this at the national this year. They bought a giant booth in the middle of the Breakers Pavilion. They pretty much took 2/3 of it. So, and it's also because it's a game that you can play. So it's like Pokemon, right? Like these cards have different powers, different values. You play against each other. And then they have an Apex deck, which basically you got to be a millionaire to get these cards to play because these guys literally are the guys that pay like 12 grand for a card because they don't want anybody else to have it.
Well, and they're doing that game set where it's similar to a Pokemon style Magic the Gathering, battle yourself, build a deck, do that. And that I think also adds to the component of this because it also makes your base cards and your base parallels so much more valuable because guys are playing them as well as guys that are buying them for investment value, grading them, whatever it might be. And Anthony, you mentioned coming up to the National, and you had a take recently, and I really liked this take from you, and that was you attended the Fanatics Fest this year and really got to be, from the show floor standpoint, observant as to what that event has become. And then since then, we've had an announcement that in December, Fanatics Fest is going to come to San Diego, which I know Jimmy and I are sitting here going, well,
we'll be there.
Going to San Diego in December, going to be there.
Book it.
And it's funny because we didn't go to New York.
Yeah.
But we will definitely be in San Diego.
Proximity, baby.
And so tell us a little bit about the take that you had. And let me preface it with Anthony's statement that I observed was that it's only now a matter of time before this leaps the National. This is no more if it's going to. This is when.
Right.
Is that correct, Anthony?
Let me put it into this words. If our owner Dane came to me and said we needed to save our money for San Diego and had to skip the National, I wouldn't even think twice about it. I'm going to tell you why. Like, even just being a vendor, Fanatics Fest is not a card show. It's a fan experience. And I didn't even realize it because there was so much going on. It was so busy. There were so many people at our table that I didn't even realize Tom Brady and LeBron and all them half the time were talking on stage right next to our booth. I didn't even know Kevin Hart was sitting in a bathtub on stage. Like, that's how busy and how much stuff was going on there. Or that they walked some UFC fighter past us, or I don't know. I don't even know what athlete he was, and just had all these guys that are like 6'8" and like 400 pounds walking past some little dude in between them, and you couldn't even see him. But they had everything there from if you wanted to drive an F1 car. They had big 80-inch TV screens, which they were trying to donate, and I couldn't fit them in my vehicle. I did manage to snag a couple 55-inch, but we'll talk about that later. But it was just, they had a wheel, like the Price is Right wheel. You could spin it and win up to $500 in fan cash. Actually, one of my buddies, George, Steve knows who he is. He won $500. He came over, run our table. Hey man, I just won $500 in fan cash. You could use it at the bar. You could use it for the clothing store there. You can use it on the gambling app. anywhere you wanted to. And there was lines of people to get in there. They also had an area, if you just needed your kids to be occupied, they literally had giant play areas with like different games for kids to go play, like soccer and, basketball and all these things.
Well, and they did a great job with that, like bringing the athletes out too for those experiences. So the kids would be out there playing their sport, and then all of a sudden, here's professional. Here's Jaden Daniels walks out there and starts throwing the football to these kids.
Jaden was at the Raising Cane's booth behind us, like maybe about 8 booths down, and we heard all these people screaming so loud because it was already loud in there. We were by the stage. But I'm talking about like people like wanting to crawl out, like, what's going on? They're like, it's Jaden. I'm like, and I still had a line of people at my table trying to buy things, and everybody's still trying to pay attention onto who the celebrity is. There was never a dull moment from the time you walked in that door. I only got a chance to briefly walk around the show maybe twice because we were that busy. And I just got like lost. Like you just keep walking and walking. And unlike the National, if you guys have ever been to the National in Chicago, it's like a maze and you never really know where anything's at, right? It's like you're looking for the Breaker Pavilion, which could be right, but it's like kind of confusing where at the Javits Center, even though I didn't care for New York that much, but at the Javits Center itself, it was just very simple to navigate through there. I didn't find it difficult to find other than when I was trying to get my dealer badges, but probably don't want to spend an hour me complaining about that. But even that was simple, and it could have been made easier. It was just, when you're setting up, it's completely different. But once it was set up for like the fan to come in, and it was easy from step A to step B, like to find the concessions, to find the bathrooms, like to find where the stages are, because it's one giant rectangle where when you do the National, it's like it goes down this corridor and then it kind of turns this way and it goes that with the Javits Center and Fanatics. They did a really good job laying the floor plan out to kind of make the flow of traffic benefit the vendors.
And that was
Steve knows that setting up shows,
right?
That's one of the most important things to get vendors to want to come back, is they want to feel like they can do business there. And I think Fanatics really did a good job with that.
And that was going to lead me to my next question, because you actually alluded to that, Anthony, last time you were in the studio on the set, sitting right next to me, and you mentioned that was such a key for you, even as a fan out here, for all the festivities regarding WrestleMania and everything throughout that week, the proximity, the logistics, how accessible everything was. And with everything that Michael Rubin is doing with Fanatics Fest in New York, we understand how it's going to have its roots planted there. But as Steve just mentioned, moving to San Diego, you're familiar with big markets, working directly in there and visiting at other ones, and you have now enough experience to really know what works and what doesn't. Are there any cities or are there any certain types of venues in the near future, even if they haven't really tapped into this yet, that you think that are going to be in the mix, at least in your professional opinion and on your radar? Because it seems like there are just certain places where this could be an absolute hub for the hobby.
To be honest with you, like, and not to be a biased thing, but Chicago is kind of the central of the country.
Right.
And I think that's why the National always like really worked here. I don't care for the Rosemont location. The hotels are convenient, but the actual venue itself, I don't really care for. Mainly I lost my interest in there a couple years ago. If I remember, guys, they had no air condition, like for 2 days. That's unacceptable because.
And the Wi-Fi for years.
No Wi-Fi.
Dreadful.
Brutal.
And I get like, should probably do it at McCormick Place, right? Obviously, it's going to be more expensive like New York, right? It's going to cost vendors more money. But if they set it up like it did for Fanatics Fest, the fan experience and the repeat business of people being able to actually spend their money, not just huddled and sweating next to each other, to actually enjoy the event. And then if you're not there for cards, your wife can be off shopping in the Fanatics. They had like 4 different storefronts in there. Might have had more. That's all I could find or get to, but it just looked like it went on for a long way, right? Like I said, there's something there for everybody to do, but being able to feel comfortable to spend your money versus feeling like I need to get out of here because it's too hot or it's too crowded. I felt that, like, even as a vendor, like, because everything was so spaced apart. there's not that many vendor tables at Fanatics Fest. They only invite the top. I felt like they only invite the top vendors.
Yeah.
Right. Like I didn't feel like there was just a lot of random people there that got in there because they've either been there forever or they know somebody, aka like the National.
Well, I'm a little biased. Obviously, I think the only place that would top them all would be Las Vegas. I think if they brought Fanatics Fest to Las Vegas, now being the mecca of sports, we're the mecca of everything.
Yep.
Like we have the hotels, we have the game. Just imagine the kind of scenes and the kind of stuff that would go down and the stories that would be told if they did Fanatics Fest and they brought all those celebrities here to Vegas. Because I guarantee they're all going to end up at Live. They're all going to end up at Zook. All these big nightclubs are going to throw huge parties for them. Like Vegas, I think, would be the only place that could top New York or Miami or San Diego. San Diego is going to be fun. Don't get me wrong. I can't wait to see how they do it down there. But I think Vegas would, and I'm a little biased. I know I saw you this weekend in Dallas. What was everybody asking for? What were people looking for in Dallas on the sports card market that you could say, this is what's hot right now and this is what people are buying?
You know, from a collector's standpoint, the $5 to $100 value bin was it's been the talk of the show at every show. Even the guys that do like the Whatnot single shows, like that seems to be the huge buzz. Now, I don't think it didn't matter what we had in our case. Like people were buying this weekend. And I think it's because the Nationals coming up. So I don't think there was really no rhyme or reason. Like everybody was out looking for something specific for their next show. And that's just kind of how Dallas is. Dallas is more of I call it more of a B2B show.
Yeah, it's a vendor to vendor. Most of the buys, and when I was there this weekend, I would say
like when we were at Fanatics Fest, if you had something marked, you know, at or just above like whatever they call the comps, right? Because the comp police, if you sold it at 90% of what you had it marked at, 9 out of 10 people didn't argue they bought it because they were there to get what they want, get their experience, and move on. It was the same thing with the wax.
So with that show, it was mostly for Fanatics Fest was mostly you're selling to the actual end collector. With the Dallas show, it's more you're selling to another vendor who's then going to go resurface it and resell it in a different platform or a different way. And you're obviously they're looking to get it at 80 to 85% or sometimes even less than that if they can get one over on you.
Well, yeah, I know. And I mean, Anthony brought that up. Did you not? I'm sorry to cut you off, but you brought that up to me talking post-event from Fanatics Fest, telling me that the one thing that you did was the guys that came over and tried to buy like that, you weren't giving those deals that first day, and you guys kept stock for the consumer that was there, and ultimately that paid off, correct?
Correct. Yeah, because like, you know, I price my things a little bit differently, like first day in Dallas, because it's literally the guys that are coming in for one day. They're looking to take advantage of, like, you know, that there's nobody there on Thursday, and like maybe you're sweating a little bit. But I've done Dallas enough to be a pro at this, to where I know come Saturday I'm going to sell whatever I need to, because Saturday's the day where people come focused to buy, and like, you know, Friday everybody's waiting for the trade night, right? Sunday, it's more locals on Sunday. I noticed it's like the locals already know Sunday's the day I can go, and I don't have 500 people in there bothering me. There's more space for parking. Like, if you're a local to the area, you're more than likely coming on Sunday. You know, somebody who's just casually coming to the show. Unfortunately for them, I don't really have anything left in the case hardly by then. But they're coming in buying wax, right? We don't sell any wax on Friday. Saturday and Sunday, it doesn't stay on the table. So when you ask me what are people looking for at Dallas, man, if you got it on the table, they're looking for it. And if they ain't buying
so
it,
the hobby's strong then is what you're saying. The hobby is strong then, right?
It's funny.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the Burbank show. The Burbank's more of a collector show, I've noticed. Like and how I can tell you that is the Burbank show. If you're a vendor and you're not taking all electronic forms of payment, quit hiding from the IRS and pay your taxes because you're missing out on so much money. 80% of the money we sold was electronic payment, including credit card transactions at Burbank. Dallas, it's the complete opposite.
And that was going
because it's a vendor to vendor.
Right. And that was going to lead me to my next question, because at the top of the segment, you even made it very clear that the most important thing right now are following the trends. And that could be anything from sports-specific trends to, like as you said, which your two quarterbacks are going to sell this year, or looking at baseball, who's going to pop on the other side of the All-Star break, as we just discussed on this very episode of our show. But as far as those trends, as you just mentioned, really breaking down the I guess you say the nuts and bolts of it all and how it differentiates from each other regarding the location, regarding the actual setup, the logistics of it all. What is one thing regarding these live shows moving forward in the future that you think will become a trend? Because you've done a great job kind of analyzing in the past few minutes what the current trends are and how they're making the impact. In your professional opinion, do you see anything coming to the conversation, joining into the conversation to kind of come out into the forefront to where it will now be established part of the industry, as Steve and Jimmy kind of talk about? Is there anything kind of on your forecast, if you will?
Man, I just, to these other shows, I mean, Fanatics Fest is, Fanatics is here to play in this hobby, in this industry, and they're looking to not just do one little thing in it, as we know. I mean,
I think we
may have lost Anthony as we work to get him back, though. No, we got you, Anthony. We hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. No, I was just saying, like, for these shows to kind of take a look at like what Fanatics Fest is doing, right? There's a million card shows. Everybody's cousin thinks that they can pop up a card show and it's going to be successful and everybody's going to show up, right? They're sadly going to find out that the people that mimic what Fanatics Fest is doing and they create an experience not just for the buyers but for the sellers as well. I think it's going to be an overall battle on the smaller shows in the next 4 years to see who can give the most value to get people to their show, and whoever can do that is going to put all these other smaller shows out to the wayside. What I see happening.
And I know from my experience in producing events, and obviously we've got PokeCon LV that we're producing, and the whole approach with that for us was to make sure that there is a experience for the people that come out and not just show up to a room full of tables, because that's done. That's being done. And actually the ticket value of that is decreasing on a regular basis. It's becoming less valuable for those shows, and people want lower cost of entry because there is no experience. There's nothing that's there. I can tell you from our side that because we have activations, because we have experiences, because we have things that people can do, things that will be coming up, and we've got more announcements that are coming along, right? That when you're doing what Anthony is doing, and what I see it as, I actually see it as a completely different concept, which is I see that Michael Rubin is a fan first and then a businessman. He cares more about being around those guys, hanging out, showcasing them, them showing up and having fun and all of that.
It's a genuine passion.
Than he is on the business. Yep. And don't get me wrong, the guy's a businessman. But at the end of the day, this was what we were hoping that Michael Rubin was going to bring. I know that we talked about it, Jimmy, pretty extensively, that we thought that if Michael Rubin could really showcase like the fan side of this and really focus on the hobby and how they would interact with it. And look, you've seen it, I'm sure, Topps, with the products that they've had out to this point, since they've really had control, that Fanatics has had control on Topps, you're seeing a different approach to the product that's coming out. And if you want any indication of that, it's that upcoming bat knob that has Charizard on it that was Evan Longoria's, right? That fed right into fans. That did not feed into the good old boys of the hobby. That wasn't about getting the biggest autograph in the game. That was not. And that's going to be considered one of the biggest hits in the product. And Evan Longoria, look, I love him, and I think he's a great dude. He's not relevant right now, but he is now.
Not comparatively speaking, worth $100,000.
But he is now, right? So when you see a guy like Michael Rubin taking that, creating fan experience, and telling his team, and the other thing he's done, because we thought he was crazy The amount of money they were spending?
Yeah.
We sat there. I know Jimmy and I sat there, and we went down the list of the first Fanatics Fest and talked about how much money that they were putting out in guarantees on those guys coming in. And we were talking like it was insane, the amount. And we're like, how can they do it?
Yeah.
How?
The only way that we thought that it was possible was because he's friends with all these guys. That's the only way that you can mathematically do that.
They're in a circle.
Yeah, because there's no way to get LeBron James to show up for 2 hours at a show. Any average Joe, if it was just me, it's probably going to cost me $1 million. He's probably not going to show up for 2 hours unless you guarantee him $1 million. LeBron James.
Yeah.
Now you're talking not just LeBron. You have 15 other superstars.
Peyton
not
and
just
Eli.
Yes.
Tom Brady.
You're talking A+ guys that are showing up to this. And we never saw that with Panini. We just saw Panini do the biggest money grab in history just this last weekend with rookie royalty.
Yeah.
I've never seen a bigger money grab from a company in my life than what they just did. They realized, oh shit, we only have 2 good players that we can actually sell right now. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. So what are we going to do? They're not rookies no more. They were rookies last year. So we're going to create a new product, bring in all the big product names like National Treasures, Noir, Contenders that they don't make for WNBA. We're just going to throw it all in one box. We're going to put Caitlin Clark in half, Angel Reese in the other half. We're going to start it at $30,000 and let these guys bid for it. It was the biggest money grab and the biggest slap in the face of the hobby that I've ever seen. You should never be allowed to do this. Recreate a rookie card a year after the fact just because you know the hobby's so hype on it. And then we have guys that are out there paying these prices for it. I just saw a Caitlin Clark sell for almost $200,000, which this, in my eyes, are technically just like the white box 101s or the black box 101s,
right,
where they just created this product for it. Should it have value? Yes. Should it have the value of pulling it packed fresh out of a National Treasures box? No. What are we doing paying these prices for
We already
this?
know what the response on that is from the hobby, because you go to the 2020 Prism product and then go to the Prism Blacks that were infused into Chronicles, which gives you a variety of different card types in it, right? And those autos of those big quarterbacks out of that product do not sell for a fraction of what the Prism product does. So if that didn't indicate to you what the value really will settle as, and look, Jimmy, you're 100%. I'm glad you brought this up. If you are buying that product right now and you are paying these prices, you are one of those ones that will be taking a bath in 18 months on those cards you purchased.
You're 100% a sheep. You fell right into their hands. You allowed them to play you.
Hook, line, and sinker.
I did not buy a box. When it got down to 4,000, I was like, shit, there's money to be made here. I should be buying boxes.
Yeah.
I didn't buy any of the boxes. It left such a sour taste as owning hobby shops and being a part of this hobby for the last 10 years of my life and putting everything into it and just watching what Panini just did. It's like, oh my God, we just allowed them just to play with us as a hobby. And these guys jumped right in, hands and feet, all these breakers. Oh my God, it's Caitlin Clark National Treasures to 25. No bullshit. They made that card a week ago.
Now remember,
what are you talking about?
I stood on that mountaintop and I screamed about the first on the line concept and what they were doing and how that was going to ultimately be the downfall of a part of this hobby, because you were allowing the group, the hobbyists and the breakers and the shop owners and all of this to essentially regulate the marketplace, but you were allowing it as a consumer and we're okay with it. Now, let's explain, because I think it's very important to explain how the Dutch auction works, right? They started at $30,000. It goes down every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It lowers in price, and you can buy at that lower price until it sells out. But what happens is once a product sells out, that almost becomes, that base bottom becomes the new market price for the retail product that hits the stores. So if Jimmy as a store pays $300 for a box of cards, and its suggested retail was $450 when he bought it, it may now be selling for $1,200 in the marketplace. And look, it's not Jimmy's fault. It's not the other business owners. It's not the breakers' fault. It's not that. It's just simply that the hobby has accepted that price is now the new market price. And it's changed, but there was a period of time it was out of absolute control. And boy, has that not come back and bit people in the ass to really showcase it. But now you guys don't see it nearly as prevalent. So when you see Panini make such an egregious reach and do such an egregious thing, it tells you these manufacturers did not have the hobby in their best interest, did not
They don't
have
give a crap.
a long-term plan as best interest. And I hate to say it, this is probably the blackest of eye that Panini could have taken on their way out the door here, that I don't see them recovering on the back end of whatever products they have left remaining to be sustainable like they did, because I think they pissed off more than enough people. And they finally realized what they were doing, because as Jimmy was pointing out and didn't mention, though, is that they bottomed out at the bottom prices they were going to. And the product sat there for hours available at the bottom of the market price. After they went $30,000 and it sold for $3,000 a box and they were available. And don't get me wrong, there's always an uptick when something sells out. It's no longer available and it's gone. But are those going to be $30,000 a box? There's no way. Is it going to be $15,000 a box? No way.
And bringing Anthony back in before we get you out of here regarding these, because Jimmy has mentioned this before several times on the show, and Steve has chimed in as well. You guys shine a lot on these controversies, on these issues that only have really become polarizing because the hobby has taken off. And when things take off, those conversations can now come to light. In your experience, Anthony, did you kind of have this on your watch list as far as a potential problem? And you think in the next few years that we will kind of see the, maybe not a squeaky clean, completely emerge on the other side, unscathed, but do you see a more refined aspect regarding this issue?
Let's just put it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we know that Topps and Panini are fighting over licensing rights. Panini's kind of on the back fence with this, so they've seen this as an opportunity to, as Jimmy said, to grab cash. Because if they do lose the rights completely to football, let's be honest here, they're going to lose a lot of cash. They're now going to be the new wild card or leaf front runner for unlicensed product, because people that like Panini are still going to buy it. So I think that's where that is with that. I think the best thing for the hobby is Topps being forced to share the licensing with Panini, because what the hobby needs is they need these companies to be forced to compete with each other so that the hobby gets a better product at a better price.
Value. Yep.
Because if they're both
100%
licensed, that's what I think we'll get. That's a fair market, and one or the other controlling everything is not good for regulating the hobby for anybody. It's just going to keep prices through the roof and keep it what it is, and allow these exclusive deals to keep eating into our pockets, paying absurd amounts of money on this stuff. It's also our fault too, because we keep getting into it, right? Breaks made it more affordable, more accessible, keeps people involved in the hobby, but you can only push people to a point. That brings up my next point. Repacks. I'm hearing a lot of people bored with repacks. I'm hearing a lot of repackers buying for repackers are getting bored with it. It's just, how much stuff can you buy at 100% and make money, right? I don't know if you guys knew recently, but some of the big news in the hobby that's not really being talked about is that Whatnot is only allowing you to sell repacks now made by a third party.
Correct. Yeah, I just heard that.
And I mean, Jimmy, you and I talked for years about this. We have, for at least the last 3 years, discussed the fact that there's no regulation on the repacks that are there.
Yep.
It's really speculative, and at the end of the day, it's about how giving are you, because that's how the repacks have been run by Gameday. Gameday runs a repack where, I'll be honest with you, they're not making 100% of retail off those cards. They're making 80% maybe off those cards that they're selling in those repacks, but they're doing it because, one, it's a consistent revenue generator, right? As a business, and the business side, when you have daily cash and daily revenue coming in, that allows you to have frequency to be able to buy more, move things around, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Two, Jimmy's always been about making sure there's value to the consumer. Jimmy's never been one that I'm going to mark things so high that, when you ask me for a discount, it's still 5% above market. He doesn't play that game. Right? There are businesses that out there that do that. They succeed. They also have crazy high foot traffic. Yeah. They have all of those things that are built in, right? those become more of the destination spaces, the tourist spots, whatever it might be. But from that standpoint, when you're bringing that up, I actually think that regulation in the hobby is really, really big. I think that's really important. And I think the other thing that's not being talked about heavily in the sports card side of things that they really should, is this has been the good old boys club for years. Everybody tries to circumvent the, PayPal fees or whatever it might be. And I know you brought that up, Anthony, but let's really discuss the fact that with this new bill that just passed with our government, that now if you're a business and I am paying out small amounts to people using my payment methods, and I don't exceed $600 with that individual, and I don't exceed $20,000 in total purchases a year like that, that's not income that I have to report. Right. That's a massive thing. And from a business standpoint, that's who's going to benefit from it, not the small consumer. The small consumer thought they were impacted because it happened to them. It's not the case. It really never really impacted them because most of those guys never ended up buying or selling $600 worth of stuff in one individual transaction to one individual person.
They had no stake anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the case of the businesses, they were the ones that really got impacted by it. And now it's like, look, if you're a business and look, you circumvent the system. If I'm paying Jimmy money this year, I'm making sure that from one platform, I am not paying him more than $20,000 this year. Mm-hmm. And I may go to another platform and pay him another, amount, and go to another payment platform and pay him an amount. And that's going to allow me to balance that out. That's beneficial to him. That's beneficial to me. It's beneficial across the board to everybody. Yeah. So from that standpoint, that is where the key is, because for a long time, Jimmy didn't want to take the online payments of things because there's so much more book work added to the end of it. So much work to have to do. Tedious. And now it's like, look, tedious, I'm going to sell you that $30 card and take your credit card. Whereas before I didn't want to. No, I want cash for that card. Right? This hobby, the toy hobby, I think are the two that are really prevalent with the I want to keep cash as king. And this is opening the door to give that ability. So when you couple that with the concepts that you're talking about, Anthony, and you're seeing these things, these are things that are beneficial to the space that I think long-term will have major residual values. And you're right. People aren't talking about regulations in the marketplace and how they're being benefited more to hold the businesses in the right spot and the casual person. And that's where the problem is, right, Anthony? The casual repacker is the guy that's going out and he's the one that's overvaluing his repack, saying, it's a $10,000 break with $8,000 in cards in it, right? Like that's where the problems lied. And so now that you see that, I don't know if this is a bad thing. What is your take? I mean, how do you guys at Breaks and Takes feel on the repack side as far as this goes? Is this a benefit to you guys, or do you feel like this is halting you guys a little bit?
With all of the controversy in the hobby as it is, Dana, our owner, has always been very leery. Like, we have a whole repack concept that I came up with and we wanted to run with. The biggest problem is because all these people make repacks look bad. And then with all the negative comments that go around the hobby saying, oh, these people got ripped off, or these people were lying. And we just didn't want to get caught up in that because it wasn't our wheelhouse, and we're not in this for the short-term cash grab. Like a lot of these repackers have like a 2-year limit, I think, in this hobby from the time they start until they're done. Unless obviously you're one of the big boys or whatever, but most of these guys, year, 2 years, they're in and out. And we didn't want to get caught in a controversy of getting bad reviews because people felt like they got burned because we packed them and not somebody else. It's the reason why a lot of the big breakers that have their own repacks have different names on them, but we all know the repacks from Pull Wax, and
they're still making them. They're just putting a different name on it. That's all they're doing.
Absolutely. So for us, it was like we just decided to kind of stay away from that concept, and to use our resources to our strengths. It's just it's a very slippery slope. And I think we decided it was better to move on to other things. Now, do I think that it's all bad? No, I think that there's great value. Like, I've gotten in game, Jimmy, I bought some of yours. I mean, I was never mad at what I got. and I think it's done correctly and in the way that people should look at it, maybe use the way you guys do it as a model. Actually, I modeled mine kind of similar based on how you guys had done yours. But here's a problem that we run into. So comp cards, right? And I've read a lot of legal disclosures now on some of these repacks like that are out there, like Flamethrowers has this whole legal disclosure on the back about how they comp it, how the prices change, the date that they pack this stuff, and what the prices were on that date. So like, let's say I put a Trevor Lawrence rookie card in there and he's having the season of his life the day before, right? And his card's the highest value it's ever been. And that's the price that I packed it at. A week later, busts his knee, prices plummet 30%. You've repacked 50, 100 boxes, 200 boxes, cases, right? So like, well, you didn't know that card was going to drop. Now the customer's going to look at it. You already have an cost average value of all these, because you got to do what's the ceiling, what's the average, what's the floor. But we all know that changes. Every day it changes. It's impossible to keep up with. So if you set a ceiling at this, it's almost like you have to set it 20% below just to cover your behind. And I think Dane just didn't want to get into that. And when I sat and thought about it, I'm like, this is just way too much. As our company is growing, starting to become one of the leading names of breaking in the hobby, on our respective platforms, and we just felt that it was just too critical to not get involved in that right now, because we just felt like one repack goes wrong and that could hurt the company more than it's going to benefit us in the long term.
Well, there you have it. And that's what's so cool about segments like this, really shows like this. But so often with what we do on the Game Day Huddle, naturally, we're going to break down the market value of individual players based off their performance or based off of what's topical in the sports news cycle. But so often these conversations are really what I think are the shining kind of the claim to fame of shows like this, and really just as the hobby expands in the media, that's what I'm most excited about. Stuff that you just alluded to, Anthony, and Jimmy and Steve, you guys as well, shining a light and providing clarity on the issues and the trends, and even the, I guess you could say, as crazy as it may sound, the quote-unquote ethical concerns regarding the hobby. And now so much of it has been cleaned up, so much of it has been refined, yet there is still a long way to go. And that's why conversations like these are so fascinating, because it points to exactly that. That is Anthony Scott for Breaks and Takes. Go ahead and follow him at BNT at BNT underscore university, right? That underscore always gets me. But again, follow him on social media. Great insights as always. We hope to have you back on the show as well, whether it be in studio or the same way you're joining us here. It was great to have you from Chicago. And Steve, you got something else for really quick before we
Yeah,
set
real
him
quick.
up?
Just wanted to let everybody know that if you guys get a chance, stop by the realist.com and check out the new hip hop auction that's up there. The guys over there, they do a lot of great stuff with sports and the music hobby. And they have all the Eagles Super Bowl jerseys there. They've got all kinds of cool, like, sports-related stuff. But they also are big in the music side. And our friend at OG Comics, Cody, has a bunch of items from NWA and DJ Yella from NWA's personal collection that's up showcased currently in the auction. Auction went live on the 3rd. So you can bid now. It's about a month long, and you got a chance to get in there. And we're already seeing crazy, crazy action on this double platinum album that was really cool on there. So if you guys get a chance to check it out, go to therealist.com. Check that auction out. Check the other stuff they have coming up as well. Do a lot of great stuff, and you're going to see a lot more of them in the sports hobby. So you're definitely going to want to check it out. So stop by therealist.com, check it out, and maybe even bid on an item and pick something up for your collection.
Absolutely. And again, by all means, check out Anthony and everything he does with Breaks and Takes. That's at BNT underscore university. Check him out on social media. He's active on it. And again, he'll continue to be active on the Game Day Huddle front whenever we can have him on to shine more light on these issues. And of course, as we get closer to football season, really tap in to those growing trends as well regarding the year 2 players and everything in between on the NFL front. So Anthony, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, sir, and you take care.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me.
And that's what's so cool about this show, too, because it's so easy on a news-heavy day to talk about who's selling here, who's selling there, how are they doing, who's performing well. But this is where I really learn, stuff like this. And to hear you and Jimmy also able to shine in, I mean, I can just kind of sit back and relax and just kind of sit here and take notes about everything in the industry, the rising trends, the things that need to change. And what's so cool is because we joked about how we came on the air at the top of the show, how Jimmy's feeling chesty today, but we got to see Jimmy rant, and we haven't seen Jimmy.
We haven't had a rant in a bit.
Right. Jimmy's passionate about, the analysis on a week by week basis, but as far as the big issues at hand, right, those controversial topics, we know he has plenty loaded up in the chamber, and it was cool to see him unload there. Really quick though, before we get out of here, Jimmy, I know obviously on the Game Day sports cards front, you have the new shop in the Southwest area, right? You have a couple of weeks under your belt now. Just really quick, how's everything going, and what's the best way to kind of stay in the loop regarding all your locations?
All you gotta do is follow us at on Instagram,
Yep.
Game Day Sports Cards. We update everything on there, post everything, all the stores from everywhere we're doing. They're doing great.
Awesome.
215 and Rainbow, they're rocking and rolling out there. Maverick and the boys are doing a good job. So keep us in the loop, and we'll see you guys soon.
And the social media content is pretty damn cool. I'm a fan of it myself. You guys are getting creative, but it's short, sweet. It's short, sweet to the point. Sometimes with stuff like that's a little too long-winded, where you forget what they're trying to promote or what they're trying to plug. You never forget what Game Day Sports Cards' main objective is, as is everything on the Game Day Huddle. And of course, you can always find Game Day Sports Cards represented at One of Us Comics. Steven, I know you guys have plenty to be excited about coming up in the near future.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on. You can check out both locations, both the Arts District location and the Henderson location as well. They just had an event at the downtown store for 4th of July and had a big event going on there, and that's something that you'll continue to see. And then at the Henderson location, it's Pokemon. Keep loading it in, and that's going on. Speaking of Pokemon, PokeCon LV coming up September. Get your tickets now. Go to PokeConLV.com. Making the announcements officially this week, Chum Lee from Pawn Stars will be joining us as an ambassador of the show. So you'll be seeing Chum join the show as well. And we've got a bunch of other announcements coming down the road here. It's just around the corner now. We're only a couple months away. So make sure you grab your tickets. You can grab them off the website right now. And of course, Michael Lugo, thank you so much that you checked us out during your workout.
Gotta love it.
We appreciate it.
He's going to shower and probably head over to the store, knowing him, especially with all the Pokemon craze. But again, whether it be Pokemon or whether it be anything on the sports front, the trading card industry continues to boom, and the Game Day Huddle will keep its thumb on all of it as we continue to press forward into this awesome movement and these awesome changing times regarding the hobby. So for Steve, for Jimmy, for everyone involved, big shout out to Anthony Scott for joining us. We thank him. We hope to have him on again in the near future. And again, just like you saw there from Michael Lugo, phone lines will continue to be open. Our live chat comment thread will continue to be open. So like us, follow us, subscribe to us on all of our digital platforms so you can stay in the mix as we continue to have one hell of a 2025 here from the Go Live Vegas studio. It's the Game Day Huddle. We'll catch you next time.